Okay, so I'm going to show you how to build your own model. This is not a fully blown TPU. This is a basic meeting type analyzer, and it will show you observations, suggestions, and nudges to basically hold better meetings. It'll allow you to benefit from its advice because it's using a rule book contained in what we call the framework, your own custom framework, which you can adjust at any time, but I'm going to give you the foundation for it. And we use that framework to spit out advice in the form of observations, suggestions, and nudges that will help you get better at meetings, save time, and make better decisions eventually for you and your team. Now, there are instructions that go into this. The instructions are over here, and I'll just click to show you what they look like. Now, this is going to open a ChatGPT model for Omni. You can use any model out there on the market, but I've just chosen ChatGPT because it's quite convenient for me today. And it will open up the editing version, the editing section of the model. So you can see here that I'm straight in there into the editing interface. And you can see that there are some instructions that need to be put in here. I've put them in already. To show you what they look like, I'll use this clean sheet here. I'll just paste what's there in for you. And what it's doing is I've given it instructions so that it will analyze keywords and phrases within the meeting transcript, which it will be fed as a message. It's going to look for signs to tell it what type of meeting is going on. Is it a general meeting? Is it a daily stand-up type meeting? What type of meeting is it? I've put in here all of the common Scrum events. I've included backlog refinement. Strictly speaking, that is not a Scrum meeting. It should happen all the time. But anyway, that aside, you can see here that what it will essentially do is it will look for, first of all, is it a Scrum meeting? If it's not, then it's probably going to be a general meeting. And it will then, at some point, use what we call the traffic light system to point out observations, suggestions, and nudges. And you can see here the feedback types and when that feedback will or will not be appropriate. So in the case of an observation, it's not urgent. In the case of a nudge, on the other hand, it is requiring immediate action because maybe something drastic has gone wrong and you need to be aware of it. Not that you wouldn't be aware of it if you were in the meeting yourself, but let's say you're not there. Let's say you've taken an off day, or let's say, for example, you're distracted. There are things that happen in meetings that a team leader or a coach cannot always be aware of. So this is really to give you an additional pair of eyes and ears, and to allow you to course correct very quickly, even though you're not in a meeting, or indeed if you are in a meeting but aren't quite as sharp as you'd like to be on a particular day. Anyway, moving back to our process here. So the next step is to create your custom framework. I've created one already. It's contained in this file here. And for us, the framework is a description of what we want the model to do if it encounters specific situations within any one of these meeting types. So you can see here, if the objectives are unclear, if there's poor time management, if there's a dominant voice or voices, it will call things out. There's scope creep, and the list goes on. There's a ton of things here that will call out. In the case of your daily stand-up, it'll do a similar thing, but it will use the Scrum guide as its rule book, and it will make sure that you are following best practices. Now, for me, a daily stand-up should focus on replanning, de-risking, and collaboration. If people are giving updates, that's a red flag. If that's what dominates the meeting, it should call it out in the form of a nudge. And the focus should really be on other things, de-risking, like I said, and replanning for the day. And it should be short, sharp, and quick. 5 to 10 minutes is my goal. The Scrum guide says up to 15 minutes, but I've got my preferences, and we typically end our Scrum meetings within 6 to 7 minutes at the very most, because we follow that type of discipline. And it goes on. You've got all the different types of Scrum events listed here with the relevant guidelines or rule books, if you will. Now, coming back to our model. So the way that it works is you give your transcript to ChatGPT, and I'll just show you one that I've done previously over here, I think. Where is it? Okay, yeah. So you put in your transcript, basically. This is a transcript of a fairly dysfunctional sprint planning meeting. I put it in, and what the model gave me is a set of observations, suggestions, and nudges, as I anticipated in the instructions and in my framework. And it also gives me some referencing material, so for extra learning. And the reason it did that is because I asked for it. So at the end of all of this instruction under my meeting types, I told it, look, for every observation, suggestion, and nudge, give me a relevant piece of learning material so that I can get better at meetings and avoid what I'm doing and understand the context. Why is it good to do this? Why is it not so good to do that? And coming back here, I think we've covered everything here that we need to cover. Now, I'm going to show you what the TPU does very briefly, because the TPU, as I mentioned, is a bit more, well, much more comprehensive. It uses our framework called the 6 Ps, and it also provides a degree of AI automation. So if you are using a tool like Jira, MS Projects, Asana, Monday.com, it can take tasks from your meeting transcript and put them into the relevant tool so that you don't have to. So what we're doing here is we're, in addition to providing you with intelligence on the different meeting types, we are pulling information from your work progress tool, and we are analyzing that as well. We're analyzing the meeting, the progress, and we're giving you as a team leader observations, suggestions, and nudges to help you course correct. And we're even giving you a SWOT analysis of the meeting and what kind of progress has been made. And we're giving you a plan of action in addition. So in essence, we're saying to you, look, as team leader, your coaching stance or your coaching time is tiny compared to what the model does for you, because the model is stepping in for you as a kind of coach, and it is allowing you to spend more time being a great leader, looking after people's well-being. And by the way, our model has an emphasis on 3 things: productivity uplift, performance uplift, but also the uplift in your team's well-being. This is really important. Now, how does it actually do that? I'm going to show you the results of this meeting. Okay, what did our model produce? Hopefully it should go to it's going to Slack, I think. Actually, it doesn't need to go to Slack. It can go to a Word document, because I copied and pasted that information into one of these many Word documents. Aha, here we go. So, the meeting in question was a sprint planning meeting for a coffee shop building team, believe it or not. These are the summary insights. Now, this is all you would need as a team leader, right? You basically need a short, sharp summary of where you might need to course correct. But if you want to dive deeper, here are the observations, suggestions, and nudges that were produced by our TPU as a result of looking at the work progress tool. So it was analyzing Jira, and this is what it found. Not too good in sprint number 2. It had a bunch of challenges, and it suggested some things here, but more importantly, it suggested root cause analysis for sprint 2, because at your retrospective, this is one of the things that you might want to consider, because your velocity has dropped significantly. It also looked at the meeting transcript itself, obviously, and it did what the meeting analyzer that I showed you earlier would do, but again with a little more context, because we have a 6 Ps framework, which I'm not going to go into right now. You can look at some of my other videos to understand what that, how that works, the 6 Ps, and why it's important. And also, by the way, I wrote a book on this, but I'll leave that for you to discover when you look through some of the podcasts and videos. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's a SWOT analysis here, and there's some coaching support. So hey, there's some praise for the team. Fantastic. There's encouragement and there's direction. And then of course there is a plan of action, a grow plan. We are very, very keen on making sure that your team can grow, that there's a plan after every meeting. Now, of course, like I said before, you do not, as a team leader, need to go through all of this. This is what you should be focused on. This is what's going to allow you to course correct within a few microseconds. But this is the detail when you have time. And here are the tasks that would be sent to Jira based on the transcript. Okay. And here are the key actions and responsibilities that might be emailed to people automatically, depending on how you configure the tool. And that really gives you a high-level view of the TPU, our TPU, and how it compares to a model that might otherwise be great, but is really restricted to analyzing your meetings and how well your meetings went or didn't go. But nonetheless is very, very useful.